Oh my god, that was crazy. All right, episode 3 of Daredevil Born Again season 1 has dropped on Disney Plus, and so I gotta talk about this. So spoiler warning as per usual, if you have not yet watched this episode and you're planning on it, then I advise you to turn a blind eye because I will be talking about what happened in this episode in detail. If you have watched it or you don't care, then stick around, you're good. All right, let's dive in. So first of all, what the fuck? Okay, now really getting into it. First, getting this out of the way, the whole mob crime organization that was previously run by the Fisks, which is now undergoing a power vacuum since the Fisks are now in office. So things are getting out of hand. That's like the B plot. I feel like that's going to rear its head towards the end of the season because that's kind of, it's in the building blocks now. I mean, the episode starts off with that double homicide, but really, for now anyway, that's not that important. Also, there's more graffiti showing up. We see that one of the Punisher skull that says triggered. And I noticed this the second time I watched this. It says Muse underneath that. Now, Muse is a character that we saw in the trailer. He's a villain who's known for his graffiti. So I feel like, yeah, those building blocks are starting here too. Or actually, they have been starting since the first episode. We saw the graffiti of Kingpin. So that'll also come into play later. But really, this episode, this is the trial of Hector Ayala, which is crazy because last week I said that the legal scenes were really boring, but oh my god, I don't know what happened between last week and this week, but Babe and I were both locked into this episode. This was our favorite episode yet, and there was not a single action scene. Yeah, that's really impressive in my book. I mean, everyone's there in the courtroom. Matt Murdock, like we know, he's representing Hector, and the DA, Hochberg, is representing the people of New York. And actually, we do see that among the cops who are there, one of them anyway, he did have a Punisher tattoo on his neck, which again, yeah, this show's going there with those corrupt cops. That's a pretty big deal. And I feel like that culminates at the end of this episode. I'll get to that. So at a point, Matt Murdock gets Nicky Torres to show up. Nicky Torres was the guy who was getting beat up by those cops, so Matt calls him in as a witness. And he's like, yeah, you were there that night, right? You were the one who was getting beat up. But he actually lies under oath, which is because he was an informant, right? Like those cops were looking at him. Matt even heard them before. One of them was like, oh, Torres can't testify. In fact, that was the one who had the tattoo on his neck. So yeah, I'm sure Torres was trying to save his own ass. So he had to lie under oath, which he's getting into some deep water there. But that would have been a big help to Matt in our case. So he comes to the conclusion with his partner and with Cherry that he has no other choice but to reveal Hector Ayala's identity as the White Tiger, which he does the next day. Which, yeah, that was a pretty big shock, but Matt figures that he can get character witnesses to help him out, since the White Tiger is a good person who helps people out. Matt Murdock would know, him formerly being Daredevil and all, so yeah, smart tactic on Matt's part. That being said, that was also a gamble on Matt's part, because he would know as Daredevil he can't save everyone. Maybe people had bad things to say about White Tiger, but Matt had to win this case. The way he saw it, metaphorically speaking, he had no other option. He even tells the judge afterwards, he's like, my hand was forced. And one thing this episode does really well is build up our emotional bond with Hector Ayala, with these heart-to-heart scenes that he has with Matt in the prison cell. The one where he's talking about the beach with the frogs that make the noise, which, yeah, that came back to bite us in the credits, didn't it? Ugh, they pulled an Infinity War, dude. But yeah, those heart-to-heart scenes, they were great. And so the next day in court, Matt brings in some character witnesses, and they do exactly what he hoped they would do. Matt even further proves his case. He asks him, he's like, why did you step into harm's way? And every time Hector was like, it was the right thing to do. They bring up police statements, which if you know your Marvel lore, one of those police officers, yeah, we heard Officer Morales in there. Babe and I were both like, huh? Spider-Verse reference right there. Oh boy. I mean, after all, from Spider-Man Homecoming, we do know that there is a Morales family somewhere in this universe. Either way, it was a really cool Easter egg. And so Matt makes his closing statement. And it's a really good one. He walks up to the jury. He's like, yeah, you know why Hector does all this stuff? Because he's a hero. And then Hochberg makes his case, which I honestly at first thought was kind of flimsy. He's like, people do good and bad things. I was like, that's not much of an argument. Not a good one anyway. But then unfortunately, he does go on and he addresses the cops in the crowd and they're like, yeah, they're heroes. They don't need to wear masks. And I unfortunately was like, that is a good point. He's like, real heroes don't need to hide. I was like, yeah, alright, that's a solid statement. Man, this might be a close case. But justice prevails. Hector Ayala is found not guilty. And Babe and I were both like, yay! Yeah, we were celebrating. But then the episode cuts over to Fisk watching the news about it, and I immediately was like, oh yeah, Fisk isn't gonna be happy about this. Yikes. Because we remember his whole thing is that he wants to wipe out vigilantism from the streets. So the big shock at the end of the episode here, we see Hector Ayala suiting up in White Tiger, which at first, yeah, we were like, is it really smart to suit up so soon after this court case? Maybe take some time off, dude. Just relax, let it breathe. He probably should have taken our advice. Cause he goes out and yeah, the big shock. This hooded figure, we don't see his face. He walks right up beside him, points a gun at him, and pulls the trigger. And we were both like, what the fuck no! After this episode did such a good job at bonding us emotionally with this guy, he just gets shot in the head and killed. Ugh, oh, that sucked. And then the hooded figure walks towards the camera and we see that he's got a Punisher logo on his chest, and we were like, holy shit, Punisher! And at first, yeah, like I thought that was the Punisher. He was hired by Kingpin, obviously, to kill White Tiger, which made me think, oh shit, we got Punisher coming next week, Frank Castle, finally! But then I was talking with our other friend about this, and he actually brought up some good points. He said that's probably not Frank Castle who killed White Tiger, because Frank Castle wouldn't work for Fisk. He wouldn't stoop that low. Also, Punisher is against those cops that bear his symbol. He's not about that. There have been comic books out there that have touched on this. So yeah, this probably was a corrupt cop who killed White Tiger and just bared the Punisher logo on his chest because he was Fisk's corrupt cop. Either way though, that means that Frank Castle, the Punisher, is going to be framed for the murder of White Tiger. Think about this. The Punisher is going to be framed for the murder of White Tiger. We know this because he had the big old Punisher logo on his chest like the Punisher does. Now granted, this isn't going to be the first time we've seen the Punisher in court. We saw that in season 2 of the Netflix show, so I guess it's going to happen again, but oh boy, who's going to represent Frank Castle, huh? Who exactly? Oh, that'd be a really bad drama for Mr. Matt Murdock, wouldn't it? Holy shit. Yeah, now the show is getting deep. We're getting to the meat of the story now here in episode 3, and I am in. So yeah, for this being the shortest episode yet, it was certainly the best yet. It had the drama, it had amazing dialogue, great acting of course, and it just did such an amazing job at emotionally bonding us to Hector Ayala before the rug was pulled out from under us, the damn writers. And I cannot be more excited for next week's episode, because if for nothing else, I'm curious to see what Frank Castle has to say about all this. But until then, Daredevil Born Again, Season 1, Episode 3, The Hollow of His Hand. Have you watched it yet? What are your thoughts on this shit? And what are your theories and predictions for next week's episode? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!